Hello YouTube. I'm going to do a review on this Ares Crossfire quad. Now I'm a car guy, this is the first proper quad I've ever owned. The only thing I've ever flown prior to this has been the infrared controlled SEMA little helicopters, the little gyrocopter things that are like 20 bucks, like a 107G and stuff. So most of the reviews that I've seen on this are fairly positive generally, but they've got a criticism that it's too expensive. And that's back when this was selling for $300, and I think that, yeah, $300 is way too much to spend for this, but it's selling now for like, I think $79 or $99 at AMain. So for that money, it actually is a great option for a first-time quad. At least I think so. So I'm just going to do a quick review of the Crossfire itself real quick, my experiences with it, then talk about the equipment that I use, and then a couple of issues that I've seen, and I'll try to also get my my kid to record me doing a flight. So I've had 2 battery packs through this, okay? So in order to get into it, right, you pull the pin, and then you pop the cowling, and then you've got the chassis, whatever it's called. First thing you'll notice is that I don't have the video transmitter attached. That's because on my first battery pack, I landed it kind of like this, I guess. And what it did was it bent the cloverleaf back, which ended up tweaking. As you can see, this is at about a 30 degree angle up. So it's cracked the circuit board, bent it up. This is all at a bad angle. I'm not sure if it works because I don't have the video gear, because I was flying at line of sight. Plan on flying at line of sight for some time. I'll probably need to get a new one of these. At any rate, what's kind of nice about it is I don't have to mess about with this, because this is a bit of a pain in the butt. When the cowling is on, you can't really get your fingers in there. The antenna spins freely independently of the nut, so getting it on and off is a bit of a pain. I think I would prefer a taller one that was on a flexi thing, so that if it does take another digger, the flexi thing will bend and not this. So I'm not sure if they even make that. Like I said, I'm not really into quads, but I'm going to look for it. And if you buy this, or if you have one and you haven't damaged your video transmitter like I have, get yourself an antenna. Find yourself an antenna that's longer and maybe has some flex to it. All right, so that's damage number 1. Damage number 2 is just the prop tips. I think that's probably pretty standard. I've only landed this poorly into grass, but it's still, the tips are taking a little bit of damage. So that's something to consider. Definitely want to get yourself some extra props. So the other thing about the quad that I've noticed is I think it looks really cool with these tubular carbon fiber arms, right? But the downside to them is this. They twist, right? See, they twist. And in any landing that is less than optimal, let's call it, they twist. And sometimes the arm, the motor ends here, these little holders for the motors, one of them will twist. And then you'll get one motor that's kind of cockeyed, or you'll get 2 motors that are cockeyed. So I'm not sure how awesome that is. Now, I did try and really cinch this one down in order to keep it from twisting, and all I ended up doing was compressing the plastic end here, right? It didn't actually make it any tighter. So they only get so tight, and because they're smooth and round, they twist. Now, this might be a design decision, right? So if this thing is taking a less than optimal landing and it hits the ground, it might be better for the arm to twist, or for the motor end to twist on these tubes, and even sometimes these twist, right? These will twist on these arms. So what I'm noticing is I'm constantly checking alignment of motors, right? Motors and arms, are they all square after I crash it? Motors and arms, are they all square after I crash it? And because I'm a beginner, I'm not landing it awesome. And sometimes it's landing when I don't want it to. And sometimes it lands on its roof. At any rate, once it's in flight, it flies quite well. It seems, it's really windy out right now, and it seems to be handling the wind very well, actually. So all of that seems to be good. But the twisting might be a design decision to help absorb impact. I'm not sure. So So all in all, I would say the quad is pretty decent. It could use for a slightly taller antenna with some flex to it so that it doesn't damage the video transmitter. Hopefully that's not an expensive repair. And let's see, the battery, this is how I have it in there, right? I've got, because the chassis here, I don't know what this is called, the chassis, is extended out, and when you loop the battery over, it doesn't matter if this wire is here or not, because it can't ever come perfectly flush with the edge of the battery because the chassis is holding it out. So I find that this is a great place to tuck the battery lead, right? And then I can just plug it in like so. So that's all of that. So now the radio equipment. So Ares has published videos on how to set it up for Futaba and for high-tech and for Spectrum. But I'm just a beginner. I don't know if I'm going to get into this or not. I might not like it. So I didn't want to spend $300, $400, $500 on a transmitter and then another $100 or so on a receiver. So I've been pretty happy with the Tactic gear for basic use in my cars. And this Tactic transmitter, gets good reviews actually online, and it's only about $120. So I thought I'd give it a go. Now you have to buy a receiver separately. So this is the receiver that I originally bought with it, because it's the receiver that matches with the transmitter. I think this is about $30. 6-channel receiver, that's what you need. The downside is I didn't watch the videos firsthand, and I didn't read the instructions when I bought all this stuff, and I didn't realize that a top pin receiver was not going to work under the cowling. So, because the pins, when you plug in, it's all just too tall and the cowling won't fit on. So, fixes for that are, don't use the cowling. Suppose you could do that. However, as a beginner, I'd like to have some crash protection. Option number 2 is cut a big ass hole in the top of the cowling so that the pins will stick through. I don't think that's a good idea either. It'll look also ghetto, and we don't want that. So, what you need to get is something called an Npin receiver. Didn't even know these existed. Right? So you've got this Npin receiver. So this one is called the TR826. So it's an 8-channel receiver. It's the only Tactic receiver with the Npins on it that I can tell. So the good thing about the Tactic gear is it's using the Futaba connection stuff, right? So if you get Tactic gear to save money, you can use the Futaba connection instructions and you'll be good to go. Okay, so once you follow the instructions for the transmitter setup, also a little tip is put the fuzzy part of the Velcro down on the chassis, because the fuzzy part of the Velcro on your battery strap is also here. That way, if you have the hook part of your Velcro on the transmitter, if you get it misaligned or it's a little farther back and it hits on this, it actually adds to the stiction, right? But that's just a little side tip. Okay, so, sorry, I got distracted. So on the transmitter, if you go with the Tactic stuff, like I said, connect it up following the Futaba instructions, but you will need to reverse 2 of your servos. So hopefully you can see this. So we hit enter, you get to servo set, you hit enter. So channel 2 and 3 need to be set to reverse. Otherwise, the controller sticks will be working weird, and it won't work the way you expect it to, and flying it will be an absolute pain. Other than that, those 2 little reverses, thing worked flawlessly. Really worked great. So pin 5 and 6 are set up for auxiliary 1 and 2, right? So something that we don't have to do for cars is we had to program the flight controller, right? I'm only used to having to deal with speed controllers. There are 3 speed controllers, 1 for each motor, 4 speed controllers, 1 for each motor. We also have a flight controller that has a gyroscope and stuff that keeps it level, whatever. So had to program that up. So here are some problems that I ran into. The Clean Flight software that you use to program it up underwent an update that caused only 2 of the 4 motors to work. The left side motors were non-functional. So I called up the Fireland's tech support line. Super helpful. Maybe some of the best tech support I've gotten. And they said that they were checking into the update, and hopefully there would be a new update to fix the problem. About 4 or 5 days went by, and Clean Flight had a new update. Did not fix the problem. I called them back, and they said, you know what we've discovered is that some of our flight controllers, depending upon the run on production, may not be compatible with the new Clean Flight, and they're not going back, so we have to change out the flight controller for you. So send it in, and we'll inspect it out and either program it for you or change the flight controller. So I did that, and almost exactly a week, I got a brand new quad. So they didn't bother to change out the flight controller, they just changed out everything. So I got a brand new quad. Now, granted, it was only 2 weeks old, but fine. That was really great that they did that. And so when I got it back, I connected up to Clean Flight, and I couldn't get it to work 100% perfectly. I was still having a little bit of problems because the instructions for the Clean Flight and the interface for Clean Flight did not match up because of this update. You can see how this constantly just twists. Okay, that's about as square as it's going to get. So the Clean Flight instructions and the Clean Flight software interface don't exactly match up. I wasn't able to get it exactly programmed right, so I called them up yet a third time, and I used this software called Zoom, and he connected remotely to my computer and programmed my quad remotely over the internet. So this is fantastic. And one of the things that he did is he set up my channel 5. I have channel 5 routed to this switch here called H, because you can go in this transmitter and tell it what switches you want the different servo channels to work. So channel 5 I mapped to H, and he set this up as my arming switch, right? So that's a little bit loose. So if it's forward like this, the motors are unarmed, and all I have to do is flip the switch up and the motors arm. That way I don't have to do this hold thing. I don't have to mess with that anymore. It's right here on this switch, which is fantastic. I got to tell you, that's super nice. So if you know how to program that in, great. If you don't, call up the tech support and they will help you through that. Lastly, I did buy a second battery, although I haven't cracked it out yet, and I did buy a dedicated battery charger. Now I've got a number of battery chargers for my car stuff, but I wanted something small and compact that I could lug with me. This was only 20 bucks at Tower. It does both LiPo and LiFi, so it's in LiPo position. I've got it set to the 3 amp maximum charge capacity rate, and all I have to do is plug the 3S connector here, plug the battery in, and the red light starts to blink, and when it's charged, it turns to green. So there you have it. And it doesn't take very long to charge the battery up either. I was kind of surprised. Such a small little charger. It's pretty basic, but if you're looking to get into this inexpensively, which as a beginner quad, this is probably its target market. Buy the quad, buy the TX650 and the TR826 and this little Duratrax Li24 charger, and you'll have the whole package. If you're not going to fly with video goggles or the video transmitter, I would encourage you to just unplug it. Right, I've got the plug in here for that. I tucked it away so it wasn't. Oh, here it is. Anyways, unplug the pin and remove this so you don't damage it if you're not going to use it. I've left the little protection sticker on the lens so that it protects it while I'm learning to fly. So there you have it. I would give this quad an 8 out of 10 if I was going to rate it. At less than $100 or just about $100, it's a good value, I think. I think at $300, the original price, it was way too expensive, but at $100, using the Tactic gear and this little Duratrax charger, I think it's a great introduction to an actual true quad. Oh, last point. Flying in the U.S., you must register with the FCC, I think it is. You have to be 16 years or older in order to get the license. The license is $5, and it lasts for 3 years. And you have to write the license number down and have it on your quad somewhere when you fly. So I'm waiting for my wife to get our labeler, and I'm going to put a label sticker on the chassis. But that's the law. Now, you can take your chances, but it sounds like it's a pretty hefty fine if you get busted flying a quad of this size. It's over 350 grams. This is 390 grams, I believe it says on the specs. But you have to be 16 years or older to get the license, and you must be licensed to fly it. That's something to take into consideration as well if you were going to get this for a kid, which is what I originally bought this for, was my kid who is not old enough to fly it, so now it's mine. All right, well, I hope you found this helpful. Like I said, I've only had 2 battery flights through a quad, so hopefully that's the same perspective that you have, because I think that's its target market.
Hey guys, okay, so I know I promised some video of this thing in flight, but I can't actually do that. Maybe, well, certainly yet, but maybe ever. You know, I've got now 3 partial battery packs through this. So 3 flights, none of them were a full battery pack. The first flight, the wind took it and it did an upside down landing from about 8 feet off the ground, and it just fell from gravity because I pulled the throttle all the way back. Because it went upside down, and I'm new and I don't know how to handle that. So when it landed upside down, this got pushed backwards, and as a result, what I got was a video transmitter that looks like this. So you can see how the board is now bent because the forces on the antenna mast pushed it back. So this is what it looks like. I'm not sure that this even works because I don't have a pair of goggles or a screen to check, but you can see there's cracking in the circuit board, and there's some damage here. Needless to say, my guess is this is toast. So in addition to that, I also, on my 3rd flight, so the 2nd flight went fine. I did about half a battery pack. I was able to hover, I was able to move it around, I was able to turn it and circle this way, that way, bank left and right, forward and back. Still cannot fly it back towards me, so I have to keep the drone facing away from me, but basically on the 3rd flight, I went to the park. Son was flying a kite. I was there next to him. Everything was going marvelous, and a quick gust of wind came and kind of made it go a little squirrely. It was about 15 feet in the air, and it started to go down, so I tried to pull it up, and it sort of went sideways. So in a fit of panic, I dropped the throttle again so that it would come down. So it was about maybe 12 feet, 10 feet, maybe 12 feet, no more than 12 feet up when it landed. This is what happened. So it must have landed on this arm, and it cracked this mounting bracket from 12 feet up. So I can't fly it like this, obviously, because the thing just spins around. So as a beginner quadcopter, I'm going to have to say that this thing is, while in flight, is quite stable, and it's really fast. I've probably never gone above half throttle on it. The durability of with upholding against a beginner that's going to make some hard landings, even from not super high up. It's not like I had these, 20, 30, 40, 100 feet in the air and then it just came crashing down. We're talking, it wasn't much higher than I am tall, right? So when they're hitting grass, it's not like I'm flying this over concrete or something like that. We're out in a field, there's grass, and when it crashes or lands hard, or whatever you want to call it, from 10, 12 feet up, so far, massive damage has occurred in most all cases. The best that I've gotten out of it is when these carbon tubes twist and I have to realign them by twisting them back, but so far some pretty significant damage has occurred. So at this point, I'm going to say that even at $80, the frustration alone of having to constantly readjust the alignment of these motors is not worth getting this quad. But the fact that it can't withstand a drop from 10 or 12 feet without causing this kind of a damage really calls into question its durability factor. So if you're thinking about getting this as a beginner, I would say pass. If you're thinking about getting this as an experienced pilot who never crashes or rarely crashes, then it's probably a good value because it's very inexpensive for everything that you get, but its durability is just, I think, really serious in question.